Hello, guys, and welcome to the third part of this week's video lessons. Well, we were discussing about different things in the first two videos. In this one, we are going to concentrate on the printing press and standardization of the language. Standardization, I guess. Well, you know that the original printing press was invented and introduced into Germany by Gutenberg in about 1450, more or less. So it took about 20, almost 30 years in order to arrive into England, or, well, yeah, the British Islands, right? So in here, in this particular place, it was introduced by William Caxton. By the way, we're on the slide number 37 if you want to follow up a little bit. And well, it was introduced in here. So I want you to take a moment to think about how were books produced before this. Yes? And the implications of that. So just imagine, books before the printing press were extremely luxurious item. Yes, why is that? Because books were basically written by hand, one at a time, one person at a time, one copy at a time, and there was no possibility of correction in the strict sense of the word, right? Let's say that people who wrote the books basically had an original manuscript, and if they want to make a copy of it, well, they had to get the paper, had to get the bounding, had to get the ink and everything else, and well, they simply just dedicated months, sometimes years, in order to produce only one copy. This means that they were really unique, that they were extremely rare items, and of course very expensive. Normally, it was only the rich people, kings, nobles, aristocrats, and people with a lot of money who were able to afford this. Also, well, the church, the monks, priests, and the clergy in general, right? Whenever they made a mistake, because truly they made it, well, they had to look for creative ways to redraw the letter or the ornaments. That is why we have all these antique books full of flowers, arabesques, let's say frameworks in which there were drawings that sometimes were used in order to correct little imperfections. But in general, it was a very prohibitive, let's say, expensive, and it took a long time in order to produce this. So, we have that when the printing press was available, well, there were a lot of possibilities and opportunities to improve reproduction of books. Well, understanding books as different things, such as traditional books themselves, or leaflets, brochures, magazines. We're going to call them that way. Well, all these different things, right? So, of course, there are a lot of benefits, right? We are going to see a lot of benefits in the sense that, well, now it's much cheaper and quicker to reproduce these copies of books, informations, news, etc. Right? So we are going to be able to do that in a what used to take months and years now is done in weeks or days, or depending on the extension, sometimes hours, right? So it's a huge advance in that sense. Of course, it is cheaper, right? Like now, most of the people, as long as they have a minimum wage, a minimum amount of money, they can access for this. They can access to these printed documents. It's possible for them to exchange them. It is possible for them to accumulate them, and that is going to be pretty good for what will eventually become public libraries or personal collections or things like that, right? So that's something really good. the other important thing, sorry, is that well, now that manuscripts, or let's say copies of manuscripts and written things were available, well, it was much more possible, or it was way easier for people to learn how to read or write. Yes. Let's say that by simple imitation, by simple circulation of these documents, sometimes people just started recognizing words, especially titles, words that were somehow, let's say, highlighted or very attractive. So even if you didn't have a formal education, a formal training, only by means of repetition you were starting to analyze this. Now, somebody who would really felt interested into learning by imitating or checking probably would have been much more successful, right? And well, so basically we can say that the printing press was a very good push for literacy, right? For common people to learn how to read, or write, or recognize certain things. Also, let's say that it created somehow a demand for the work of writing, right? So if there was like somebody who printed something, the printing press started like the possibility of getting your life, getting some salary or getting some economic reward by or through, sorry, the example, the exercise or the activity of writing. Now this, for some people, can be good, for many, I guess. Some other would say, well, by the moment that writers started like doing it for the money, maybe the magic of it, of inspiration and everything else, like was lost. Well, that's a possibility as well. But well, pros and cons, right? In general, most of it was really good, right? Nevertheless, as you can assume, of course, there are negative things. Yes, there are aspects that are not so good about writing, and it's well. First of all, remember that every time we have a technological advance, we have a lot of people who comes out saying, "No, that's going to be the end of the books. That's going to be the end of literature and stories." Yes, it happened with the printing press at the beginning. Eventually, with the typewriter, later on with the computer, cell phones, digital books, audiobooks, well, you name it. Yes, like every time that we have a technology, we have these alarmist people that start saying that is going to make the book disappear, there's nothing like the physical book. I do agree, I very much prefer the physical books, but I think that it's going to be difficult, that as long as there are people interested in those, that is going to fully or completely disappear, no matter how easier it is to have 1,000 books into a USB memory. Let's say that is what we have. So we have these people who said that maybe it was going to be some sort of negative influence for the books. That was a little bit alarmist, but then we have some other problems that were much more real. Yes. So let's think about the absence of, let's say, a common framework for writing. Yes, sure. Until the moment we have certain levels of education in certain social groups, in certain circles, if you want to say it, but there was not a common agreement. So it means that sometimes people started like printing whatever they felt, yes, whatever they thought it was. So that is why at the beginning was such a chaos in the spelling of words, in the use of different words, in, well, a lot of different things, because basically every printer that was not necessarily an educated person, but just a person who was, let's say, trained to manage this machine. Well, he or she, well, eventually a he, would, or most of the times he would just reproduce the writings in whatever way he wanted. Yes, with a K, with a C, with an S, with a Z, right? And at the beginning it was complete chaos. Yes, because depending on the region, depending on the preferences of the people, well, we have all this printed material that didn't follow any particular rule and that sometimes confused people, right? Then we have every time, one more time, that we have some technological advance that produce or that facilitates massive communication, we are going to have the problem of the fake news. Yes, so nowadays we have them on Facebook, on Twitter, and all these social networks. But back then, well, it was the same thing. Like you had like an instrument, a machine, in order to write and to create hundreds of copies, and you just can post them around. And well, they were not necessarily true, right? So that was a problem, especially because at the time people had this idea that if it was on paper, it must be true, right? It must be something legal or legit. So it was way easier to fool people. Yeah, so think about your aunts and your WhatsApp groups, and every time they send you these very evident fake things, political, about health, about rules or promotions, or well, a lot of different things. So if that happens nowadays with education, with universities, with schools, with our level of literacy, well, imagine back then. So it was something negative, right? And well, so that was a little bit of the problem that we had with the printing press over there. We have this mixture of languages, endings, suffixes, prefixes, and everybody was basically doing whatever they want, right? Nevertheless, so this thing advanced and advanced. Let's say that because of the printing press, there are ridiculous reasons of certain things that we spell nowadays, right? So sometimes there are phonetic and linguistic reasons of double letters, right? Double S's, right? Double T's, double C's. But in some other cases, it was just a mistake of the machine, right? So you know that they manage at some point these types that are like metal or woods, let's say levers that had the letter over there, and they were like moistured with ink, and they went into the paper. So sometimes the type, it just got stopped and double tapped. So there are many ways, or many times, sorry, in which a particular word was written with double S just because of malfunction of the machine. And nowadays we just repeat that, like we repeat the mistake that was happening at the beginning. So that is like a curious information about these different things. But well, eventually many things that were popular started being printed in the printing press. The Bible was, remember that we have talked about that, and John Wycliffe's Bible in the past. But well, here, let's say that the church decided that it could be a good idea that people had the Bible, the Revised Edition, and all these different things. So this was one of the works that was produced at the time. And then some other popular let's say tales or ideas such as the Arthuric legends and some other materials that started like becoming really, really popular, and mostly everybody had one as soon as they as long as they could afford it. They had a copy in their house. Now there's something really important over here, yes, and it's the dictionaries and grammars. If you go to the slide number 42, well, as I mentioned, everything was a mess at the beginning. It was really difficult to get a unification, and everybody was doing whatever they wanted. So eventually they say, hey, we're going to create these grammars and dictionaries in which we are going to try to unify all this. And they created this methodology, created these different books, and printed them and disseminated such books around. So this was a first attempt that was somehow successful to create a standard for communication. And in that way, well, we continue like studying grammar nowadays. We know that it's a mutable field, but nevertheless it provided a lot of unification in there. Also, we have the dictionaries that were a tremendous tool at the time. Of course, you can imagine the satisfaction or the usefulness of having a compilation of words. So you could verify the spelling, you could verify the meaning, and all these different things in there, right? So it was really nice. If you take a look at the description in there, it says that one of the first dictionary had about 60,000 entries. Yes. Well, that seems an impressive number, but if you take a look at the dictionary nowadays, and online even, well, you're going to find a lot more words, right? But it was a great beginning, a great, let's say, way to try to unify. Now, if you take a look at the final slides, the next slides from the 42, 43, etc., we are going to see that because of this curiosity, because of this freedom of thought somehow, we have this boost, as I mentioned, this very important growth of science and all these different things related to creation and to studies and to research, etc. Right? Now, take a look at this, and you will see that many of these words that were introduced over here have either Latin or Greek roots. Yes, and many of the words related with science are going to be somehow have a root like this, because if you see, normally when we think about the Greek names or the Greek roots, you normally are thinking about scientific names or something like that, right? So take a look at the names of animals, the names of processes, cells, etc., right? And you will see all this. So a really good example or clear example is the logis, right? All these logos that come from these two languages, and that means study of, no? So we have biology, for example, right? So then we have another root over there, like bio, that is life, or philosophy, such as Sophia, that it's knowledge, and philo, or philos, I think it is, that is love, for, that actually are part of some other words, right? Also, for example, some other things related to, let's say, other science and everything else in there. All of these have like these Latin roots or Greek roots, and we have all these different things that are science related, right? So it was very important for the time to have all these vocabulary that is a direct consequence of the linguistic curiosity, but mostly of the scientific curiosity and the, let's say, independent spirit of mankind that was promoted back then, and to look for explanation for natural phenomena, to look for ways to improve life, and different things related in there, okay? Very well, guys. So we're done for this week with this final video. I'm going to explain the assignments that we're going to have. We're going to have 2 assignments. In the first one, basically it's a repetition of 2 assignments that we already had, but you will see that it gets difficult, each time it gets more difficult, right? Because now you have at least 3 options. Yes, I'm going to give you a text, and you're going to decide to which period it belongs. Yes, and you're going to give me 3 reasons for that. Yes, so I'm just going to basically attach the text. You take a look at the text, read it, analyze it, and it could be either Anglo-Saxon, Middle English, or Renaissance. Right? Now you have 3 options, or an option number 4 that is it doesn't belong to any of the periods that we have revised yet. Okay? So take a look at it, and you can do it. That one you can do it in groups of maximum 4 people. Okay? You can work in groups of maximum 4 people in there. Please pay attention to the instruction in the video over here. So you can do it in that way, and that is going to be the assignment number 1. Okay, now the assignment number 2 will be some sort of an introduction to our next topic. I mean, in the next week we're going to continue studying Renaissance, but we're going to go full into Shakespeare. So we're going to dedicate a couple of videos and video lessons to Shakespeare. And well, so what I'm going to give you are some quotes of some very famous plays written by Shakespeare, and the idea is that you paraphrase them into more understandable, or let's say day-to-day words. Okay, so you're going to rephrase that. And just try to explain it in simpler words. Okay. Some quotes are, I don't know, a phrase, a sentence. Some other ones are a little bit longer, until we have the final one that is like a whole paragraph or something like that. So simply please pay attention to the content of the quote, and try to paraphrase it using your own words, please. Okay, like everything in here, you are not going to like to copy the meaning somewhere else. If you think that it's necessary to read something additional, well, do it. I don't think it's necessary. Yes, I think that the phrases are somehow clear enough, and if you look for something else, they are going to contaminate you a little with other interpretations. I would recommend that you do it from what you understand. But well, if you want to do that, well, go ahead. Simply do that and rephrase it. Okay, so you're going to write like an interpretation, saying what does it mean, what did Shakespeare mean over there, etc. Okay, I am going to assign each quote to 2 or 3 people, depending on that. Okay, so if you want, you can work with those people. Yes, if I'm going to randomly select people, I'm going to put them in there. So if you want to work with the 3 or 2 people that corresponded to you, and send the same file, you can do it. Okay, if you say no, I want to work individually, no matter that we all 3 have the same thing, you can do it as well. Yes, so these second assignments can be either individual or group based, as you prefer, but it has to be with the quote that I provided. Okay, so basically that's it. That is going to be our work for this week. Please take into account all these different, like every time that we explore a new period, it's going to get a little bit more difficult to interpret, or to let's say decide what is going to be the best option, no? Because we start like seeing repetitions. We start like seeing, for example, in the previous text, if you found something French, you would say, oh, so that should be Middle English, right? Now it could be Middle English or Renaissance, no? Because you see that here in Renaissance we have a lot of French expressions and words as well, no? So you need to start analyzing things in a finer way, more explicitly. Now, like, if you find something that is pretty general, those reasons are not going to be good anymore, no? Because we have many things that are similar. So that's it. Remember, if you have any question or something additional that you would like to ask or tell me, so just let me know. I will be available for you. Hopefully we don't have troubles with this. Remember that we will continue on the Renaissance period in the next week. This is a period that has a lot of different components, and that's why it's a little bit longer than other one were. But that's it. Okay, so thank you very much. Have a great day. See you around. Hugs. Bye bye.